Pro day is an opportunity to work out in front of scouts. There have been times where pro day was inconsequential. Why? Because 3 or 4 dudes showed up, 3 or 4 scouts showed up to look at the Vols. That's when Tennessee's program was buried down. There have been other times where there have literally been 50. I don't know why you need 2 or 3 from a specific NFL team, but there have been those times. I'm reminded most of all of the Jamal Lewis year, in which he ran the, I think it was a 4.32 40 at 245 pounds. And everybody was like, this is unbelievable. This is wow, maybe 238, if I remember correctly. And it blew everybody away. And I was interviewing Mean Joe Green, who was with the Steelers, a scout with the Steelers, and one guy after another. I think this is going to be closer to that than closer to the times where you only need a small parking lot to get everybody in town. So click that thumbs up button. Let's go ahead and get to 4 downs and maybe more guys. We'll probably throw some more guys out there as well. And I ask you, who has the most to gain out of the players that I'm going to throw to you? So let's start with the guy that we got criticized a little bit for. And that was Jalen Hyatt. Jalen Hyatt had a fantastic season. He ran a 4.4 at the NFL Combine. The pro day is huge for guys that don't get invited to the Combine. So you had him get invited to the Combine, but he had a hamstring. He felt the need to run. If I had a hamstring issue at all, or I was an agent, there would be no running at all, because you can do it at this pro day and it carries the same amount of weight. So Jalen Hyatt, does he have the most to gain out of the group that will be participating? And if you have that group, go ahead and rattle that off for me.
I don't think he has the most to gain, but I think he has a lot to gain, because Jalen Hyatt, let's put this part out there with the pro day too. More than the Combine, there are some positions where you really can't do yourself any favors. You can only hurt yourself. I think quarterback is one of those positions. Hendon Hooker, luckily for him, doesn't have to participate in the pro day because he's hurt. But I would never judge a quarterback on their pro day. How easy is it to throw when nobody's in your face? And you've got.
Well, I would judge it if he only completed 80 or 90% of his passes.
Oh, I would criticize him for a pro day.
Yeah.
You can lose from a pro day. You can't gain from a pro day if you're a quarterback.
Yeah, you literally, and I'm not exaggerating by this, you literally should complete every single pass. Yes. If you go out there and throw 40 balls against air with your receivers, you should complete 40 passes. So if you throw 38, you complete 38 of 40, people are going to be like, I'm not so sure about that guy. I mean, it really is that high of a standard. And that's just the way the pro day is, I believe, always going to be with quarterbacks throwing against air. You have to judge them off of tape. So I'm actually going to disagree with you. I think Jalen Hyatt has a lot to gain. I think if he puts up I
agree with you on that.
Okay. If he puts up a mid 4.3, I think it erases that 4.4 and makes him the speedster that he looked like when Tennessee was scoring touchdowns at will last fall.
I agree. I think Jalen Hyatt could gain a lot. I just don't think he has the most to gain from pro day, but I think he could gain a lot. Don't get me wrong. I think he has. I definitely think he has a lot to gain if he gets into the 4.3 range. You're right, because right now I knocked him with that 4.4 because I noted that he, like me and you have talked about, he needs speed more than anybody else to be a great receiver in the NFL. He's a speedster. Well, to be a pure speedster, you need to get into the 4.3 range, and luckily for him, you don't really have to measure this against people guarding you. You just got to measure how fast you can run. My top pro day guy is the guy who did not get a combine invite, and that's Trayvon Flowers. And you know how high I've been on him for a while. I think he's very athletic. He's been held back since his high school days. When Trayvon Flowers played high school football, he was relegated to a 3-star because he didn't take part in a lot of the camps because he was playing center field for the baseball team at the time, which... recruiting services more than I do, Dave. That just seems ridiculous to me, that they're not going to that they're going to hold back your star rating because you don't take part in the spring camps. And
there are a lot of politics in recruiting. Don't even get me started.
Yeah. And so
that's a whole nother show.
And so Trey playing center field, he can cover a lot of ground. We saw this with him at safety last year. He's athletic enough to cover a lot of ground very fast. So I think with Trayvon Flowers, you want to judge his strides to a certain degree. I don't know if his pure 40 time is going to matter as much, but there's certain other things you can judge for a safety that will really help him since he didn't get to take part in the combine because he wasn't invited because he sacrificed his NFL future to cover for Tennessee's horrible secondary and cornerback play last year.
Okay, so we'll kind of adapt a little bit. I went with Jalen Hyatt one. We both think he has a lot to gain. From a source, I was told that expect him to run in the mid 4.3s. I think he'll run at the minimum of 4.38 today. Slightly faster track at Tennessee, but I don't think that's the difference. I think he just had an off day and probably a bad hamstring. So we've mixed up the downs a little bit. We're like that Colorado game where they had a fifth down. So the guy I was going to go with most to gain was Jerome Carvin. Jerome Carvin not invited like Trey Flowers to the NFL Combine, and if he's able to go out there and do some things, then I think he could really help himself. I don't know about you, but I watched him last year. He looked like a NFL offensive lineman, not an elite one, but a good one. I mean, one that can hang on a roster at the very least. Did you not think so?
Oh, I thought so. I'm a fan of Jerome Carvin. Jerome Carvin doesn't, for those who read PFF grades, Pro Football Focus grades, and analytics, he does not. He doesn't grade high in a lot of those instances. But I think he's one of those guys that can kind of disprove the value of PFF grades. But that's kind of the only measurement you have to judge linemen because stats really aren't a thing for linemen. I think Jerome Carvin. The problem with pro day for me, I think with offensive line, it's similar to a quarterback. I mean, there's just not a lot you can measure with them going up against people for offensive linemen at a pro day. And I think that's the real trick. Offensive line is another one of those positions where, yeah, your measurables matter, but I mean what game tape, the two positions where I think game tape outweighs the outweighs measurables the most are offensive line and quarterback. I don't know
Okay,
what you
what
think.
No, agree. What about Cedric Tillman? Third down, Cedric Tillman. How much does he have to gain? 4.54, which for his size is good. But man, if he could get just a 4.49, I know that doesn't sound like a lot. By the way, post on the message board who you are most excited to see in the future in the NFL, because I think a lot of people are excited to see this group. I think he has a considerable amount to gain if he could get in that 4.49. I was told that he probably will run. I'm not sure, but he could sit on the 4.54 that he had at the combine and 37-inch vertical leap. Had that great 10.8 foot broad jump. So I don't think he has a lot to gain, but man, if he could pop it up there in that 4.48, 4.49, that would be a different sort of big receiver to me, speed wise. And I think it would help him by 10 picks or so. I think it would have that kind of impact.
I'm with you. I think he has a lot to gain. I don't think he's going to gain that much because I just don't think it's possible for him to gain that much more. I think he gained so much at the combine. That's such a jump. Cedric Tillman has got an advantage. See, this is what hurt Juwan Jennings a few years ago. With Juwan Jennings, it was he didn't have the measurables that really benefited him, but anybody who watched him play just knew the guy was a gamer. And that was a guy where you plug in the tape. And Cedric Tillman reminds me somewhat of Juwan Jennings with his physical, imposing presence and willingness to win 50-50 balls. But you can't really measure that with measurables. And then Juwan Jennings was held back because COVID, there was no preseason. And so he really didn't get to showcase himself on the field. Tillman, I think, is his gameplay outweighs his measurables too in terms of value, but his measurables were so they beat expectations so much at the combine that I don't know if he can do much more at the pro day.
Third down, can these guys help themselves at all? Darnell Wright and Byron Young, who had good combines.
No. And I say that because it's possible don't already help himself more.
Caleb, I would show up in a suit.
Yeah, I would
do anything.
Who's going to be like, I wouldn't draft Darnell Wright after everything he's proven because he didn't do anything at the pro day?
Yeah, 5 flat, 333 pounds at the combine, one of the most dominant offensive linemen against a Heisman Trophy candidate in Will Anderson. He's just phenomenal. He just had an incredible season. I can't imagine that he would go out there and do much. His broad jump was bizarro. 9'6" for 333 pounds. I mean, I told you guys early last year, this is the best natural athlete on Tennessee's roster. I'm telling you, and this is not a huge exaggeration, with the exception of Anthony Richardson, okay, this might be the best pure athlete in the draft. If you want to consider size speed ratio, it'd be interesting to have somebody, which we might do from Pro Football Focus on, to talk about that. He might be one of the top 2-3 athletes in the entire draft, pure athleticism.
Yeah, and it shocks me that, Dave, are you surprised that no one ever thought to maybe trim him down like 20 pounds and have him play defensive tackle? Because he's so athletic. If you took like 20 pounds off, you could get that 40 time in the fours.
But does he have?
He's got ups. He could bat down a lot of balls because he can do backflips.
Yeah, let me do some more thinking on that. I mean, I hadn't thought about that at all, honestly. Obviously, it's worked out for him, so I wouldn't change anything in retrospect, but it does beg the conversation. Would Jason Witten have been an all-pro defensive end in the NFL? Probably.
Probably, but would he have been a Hall of Fame defensive end the way he is as a tight end?
John Chavis will tell you absolutely yes, and he should have never moved. All right, so fourth down. He will tell you that right now, today, if we could get him on, but he's coaching up the middle schoolers. Fourth down. Who has the most to lose out of the entire group that's going to take part in Pro Day at Tennessee? Mine's going to surprise you.
The most to lose. Now let me think I'm a little rough on this. I think I might go with, we just talked about him, but I'm gonna go with Cedric Tillman, because if Cedric Tillman's measurables drop down to like the 4.6s and 4.7s, all of a sudden all the gains he made from the combine go out the window.
You know who it is?
Who?
It's Jeremy Banks.
I thought he lost enough at the combine, but enlighten me on this.
It's not on the field. It's when a scout goes, "Hey, Josh, how you doing? Great season, man. Can we step over here for just a second and talk about some guys? This Hooker guy's good. I like Hyatt. He's good too. Hey, what happened in that South Carolina game with Jeremy Banks?" And Josh Heupel is smart enough to know to be honest with these guys, because he wants to help the guys that are good guys for his entire career. One of the biggest mistakes that Philip Fulmer did was sandbagging Jason Witten because he left early. And at that point, Philip Fulmer didn't have any credibility with NFL scouts. So he could tell you this guy's really good, and he wouldn't go higher in the draft. That was a real bad relationship there because of Jason Witten. If he, and I believe Josh Heupel will be honest. I believe Josh Heupel is incredibly honest. I hate it when he talks at press conferences because he's not forthright, but that's different than being honest. And if he says, and what I believe happened, Jeremy Banks before the South Carolina game, and he didn't show up for a Monday practice, and then he created an issue with Hendon Hooker, and Joe Milton had to get in the middle of it, and then we had to suspend him Thursday before the game, and it cost us a chance at a championship. Is there anything else you need to know about Jeremy Banks? Ooh, that's a round.
You're right.
That's dropping a round.
So this is basically like, it's what I used to learn now that I'm moved up in my career a little bit in media. When some people started to want to use me as a reference, my people I was close with I used as references were like, you can't let everybody use you as a reference, because if you let everybody use you as a reference, it looks really bad on you if no one's going to take you seriously when you let somebody else use you as a reference.
Wait, somebody used you. I'm not following.
So the concept of, I don't know if have you ever been used as a reference for someone applying for a job?
Yes. Yes.
So basically, you're kind of taught, well, the minute someone does that for you, I had higher ups teach me, don't let everybody use you as a reference who wants to use you as a reference. Because if you say yes to everybody, you damage your credibility in the industry, and then you're not going to be able to help anybody who you want to actually be a reference for, because no one's going to take you seriously.
Huh.
And
I've been very blessed in that everybody that's called about a reference from somebody, they were all great, and
yeah,
I
I
just
haven't had that issue either. Yeah, I'm just saying.
yeah, and I was actually taught by my grandfather. It's funny you bring that up. Said you don't ever want to down somebody or burn a bridge. So I said, "Well, what do you do, grandfather, when somebody calls you about a reference and they weren't a great employee? You just keep it as brief as possible." And I've called about for reference. I've called about other people to get references, and that's what they do. They go, "Oh,
Wow,
hey, Dave, nice to meet you." I said, "I was calling about Bob Smith." "Yep, he worked for me." "Well, what can you tell me about him?" "He was here from January 1999 to July 2001. Anything else to add?" "That's about it."
that makes. You think Hypo might do that then with Jeremy Banks?
No, I think you'll just throw him under the bus.
Okay, so let me ask you one last question then with the Fulmer
Because
Sandback.
what we're talking about is from a legal standpoint. You actually can't defame somebody, but we're talking about public figures now. So, like, I couldn't defame somebody. If that ever got out, it would come back on me legally.
Okay,
If
so then
somebody calls you about a reference.
let me ask you this question then, because you bring up Fulmer sandbagging Jason Witten. That happened from two. That was the 2003 NFL draft. Jason Witten was drafted in.
Correct.
Former Tennessee had a top 5 class in 2002. Tennessee was consistently top 10 classes every year from 93 to 2002. It's funny you bring that up. From 2003 to Fulmer's last class, which was 2008, Tennessee had 2 top 10 classes. That was it. Do you think Fulmer sandbagging Jason Witten, do you think that got out to recruits that this guy might sandbag you if and that hurt his recruiting in the future?
Zero question. Zero
Really?
question. You're absolutely right. Yes, because the players are always honest. The assistant coaches are still going to tell you, "Hey, we're going to get you ready for the NFL. We're going to make sure that you're good to go." But it's the players that really hurt his reputation with players. So the players are going to be honest on recruiting trips. I know a lot of fans don't want to hear this. Please hit the thumbs up button and tell me if I'm crazy or if you think this is ultra revealing stuff. But it's kind of common knowledge to me. But the players will tell you, "Hey, that Jeremy Pruitt guy's a doofus." Yeah, they will tell you on the trips because they don't want bad stuff to happen to another 17-year-old after they went through it. What a lot of people don't realize is that both professional and college athletes realize how close they came to going to Georgia or going somewhere else. And they realize that it's a business. So a lot of times they'll be very honest. That's what I think helps Tennessee so well right now is that they can honestly say this is a program on the rise. This is the program where Josh Heupel cares about you. And that's not the case across the board.